Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I'm newtmechanist, and today we're continuing our game dev project. Today is going to be wrapping up a shader that I made for outlining. This is a preliminary, it'll do for now kind of solution. But one of the things it does is remove the need for us to do the outline that we've been doing. It gives us some flexibility in how it is presented as well. We'll show that in a minute, but before we do, let's check in with the kitties. We do have Ember over here on the side snoozing. She is extra comfy, though she is not in her preferred spot because Molly has taken it. Molly takes everyone's spot. Sky is up there in the cat tree. Sammy is on the shelf, and Sherbet you can see moving around there in the other cat tree. He's peeking his head out. He's probably thrown off by the fact that I started talking. The factory is quiet when I don't have a microphone in front of me. And then Mason over there on the bed. I did just kind of toss the blanket out there to see how they would react, if at all differently. And so far, Mason seems to like the lumpy blanket more than the folded blanket. Perhaps that will become a thing. But yeah, kitties. We're on the side camera. We can get our little sweetheart there on camera with a more reliable camera. Okay, so I was setting up a shader. And like I said, this is not necessarily going to be the end state of how we're doing the shader. In fact, I already don't like how I am retrieving the shaders. But for now, it will do. So if you look, we now have a very fine line around the characters. That is because of the new shader. I can show you what that is. Hopefully beams, Taz. Hopefully we will be adding beams. Also, hello, Taz. Welcome. Hopefully we're going to get beams in there. We're going to start... Ultimately, what that's going to mean, at least initially, is a hit scan strike. Hey there, Dodds. Welcome, welcome. So fast-moving projectile straight at a target hit the first thing. So that one is going to be a raycast strike. That has tricky elements to it. I might actually do a shape cast to cover the distance. What that's going to amount to is when the entity's position is updated, we do the shape cast, and that might be just a teeny tiny point kind of thing. Or it might be something a little more sizable. Most likely, not a point. Throw that along the path that it was traveling and register a hit on everything. There is more nuance in that in order to get it right, but we might just have to say a beam has infinite penetration, or it can only hit the first thing. Kind of stuff. Because if you'll recall, the thing that makes something penetrate a target is currently just that it survives the hit. Without reflecting or stopping. But let's show some of the variations here on the shader. Currently, the sprite is the only one making full use out of it. If you notice, the particle one doesn't do anything with it. Hey there, Sherbet. Hey, buddy. Letting your chin get all scuzzy again, sir. I would clean Sherbet more often to keep his chin acne in better check. But he is really skittish, and he goes into full "I resent you and everything about you" mode for a little bit after that. So usually what happens is he will get a couple of claws trimmed. He will get his chin or his chin scrubbed, and then he gets bribed with a treat, and then he doesn't want to deal with me for a little bit. But just him coming out into reach is the tricky part. You can't run him down. Well, you can, but it's bad for everybody involved. Okay, that's right. We set up the shader material here. We set the visual scale. If instead we are going to force it to 1. I think this will still work. Shaders are fiddly. I mentioned before one of the reasons that every now and then I will just compulsively put an F after a number when I'm setting like a float or double. That is because of, let's say, PTSD from programming languages where the value that you set it to in the code can impart variable meaning, and it carries into numbers as well. So like how if you use double quotes in ye olden days, I've taken this opportunity to get some of the crud off of Sherbet's chin, but he is not going to be a happy boy here shortly. He's really got some build up. I'm sorry, you came out all nice, and then I gotta get all manhandled. Yeah, try to give him his treat during the first break. Okay, this is with no visual scaling accounted for. What that means is that we make the outline the same size as the proportional pixel size, which is scaled up, so you can see a much thicker line there. We can fully control how that happens. Right now, I'm passing in the scale with the assertion that we will make it be one actual screen pixel, which creates a very fine line. I might not do that entirely for that reason, actually, because this makes it so that it is pixel consistent. So we're actually going to leave it that way for the time being. You can see this here. This was my test bed for making it work. So what this is saying right here is that the scale that the shader operates in is the same as the scale of the texture. We do not do any subdivision of the pixels. That? Yeah, I like that. Let's do a quick interim save here. So having done this and looking at it again with how things have to access it, the shader that it uses is likely going to be something that I define in the data structure twofold, so that those shaders can be essentially preloaded. We can do the whole, pull this shader up logic, which might include things like pre-compilation, so that if we end up having super crazy shaders, we can get those prepped in advance. But it is very unlikely that we'll get there with a 2D game like this. One of the interesting things here is that we could do this. Can we get away with this? I'm trying to remember, without analyzing it real quick, if I did this safely. Okay, looks like it's correct, but first let's try it in Godot, since Godot will tell us if it's registering shader errors. All right, so we can see here there is no outline. I am tempted to go in a direction of using this. Now, the gray squares in the background are a bad thing for this as far as a lot of the sprites, since I used a lot of gray for them. But, I mean, it works. It works. You can see it slowly catching up to how much is going on the screen here. Hey there, Donald. Welcome. One of the things I had to catch when I was working with this was you set up shader materials, and you don't want to remake them. You don't want to make multiple shader materials for the same shader in the same configuration of that shader. Doing okay, Donald. It's been a drowsy couple of days, but I am getting a lot of sleep, which I'll take. I'd rather be rested, in some form of rested. But we can see we're back to a substantial FPS here. Sleep is good, Donald. Sleep is good. For those that didn't see it when we initially set this up, we have set it up so that every time the ball bounces, it emits a homing mouse, which, given the number of projectiles that we've got, it's creating a whole lot of homing mice. And again, this is demonstrating with no outline at all. This is the game I have been developing, Donald. And hello, Delusive. Hello, welcome. We now have our outline shader in place. Let's put that back at 1. Which gives us a nice visual effect here. What it ultimately does is means I don't have to draw the dark outline around every one of my character sprites if I don't want to. Let's make sure. Reason I'm... One, compulsively, I like to see it. But additionally, reason that I'm doing this is that if you overtax the whole shader system, it will stop working, so you would lose outlines. The explosion currently has no outline. Good point, though. Well, the yarn balls are almost never going to actually hit something. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay, so there's multiple parts to getting the beam in place. One of the questions will be is if the events for the collision making sure that the right number of them happen and that it stops with the collisions as soon as it can no longer collide. We'll see how that do. So the first thing that we're going to do then is create a shapecast collision. So we have a circle collision here. I feel like circle is where we're going to live with this. So again, this is a... And you can do... Shaders is ultimately a terribly vague term, given the crazy stuff you can accomplish with it. I'm just, playing around in the kiddie pool side of messing with them at the moment. Okay, if we take a circle collider, that would get us the shape. But a circle collider doesn't really have... I don't think the shape cast needs to be in an area. Let's just take a quick look here. We're just going to check some functions here. Okay, so we get the actual shape of it. Oh, interesting. Interesting. The implications of what I'm looking at here is that we could be more precise with collision. I don't think we're going to do this. We're just going to keep this as special. But what we would be able to do with this is say that instead of the shape being attached to the area, we would just have a shape and throw that shape out into space and say, what did it hit? Right now, we're reliant on... Oh. No, see, we need both. Yeah. Okay, so when we do the shape cast, it's going to create collisions. The way our collisions are handled is that we ignore any collisions that are already recorded. A can only collide with B once per step. So if the shape cast generates A to B, and then they are overlapping at the end of it, where the two areas are overlapping, then we ignore that. We'll get a collision that will raise a collision event, but we don't care. So here's our circle. And we have the area. So here's where we update the position. And then we are... Preferred notation? What are you referring to? Like, I like curly braces after the function or if. I don't... Scientific notation can be useful, you know? I prefer strongly defined variable types. I I like this kind of pattern. As in, fully defined signature, curly braces after. But yeah, if I can avoid loosely typed stuff, I will at every opportunity. It just saves me from tripping over everything. Position, we apply the offset. Hello, Rando. Welcome. I'm not sure if that was the answer you were looking for, Delusive. If it's not, I can I can try again after some clarification. Oh, good to see you again, James. Welcome back. Or at least in the chat. I don't know if you've been swinging by otherwise. Okay, so to make this actually work, to test this, we need to get the offset in place before we do the raycast, but we need the prior position. Position is equal to area position. Oh, okay. Oh man. So I learned to code in C++, and some of my variable naming conventions linger from that era. I don't do the L and G prefixes since they're generally not as necessary. But I will still use things like underscore, like this. But otherwise, it is Pascal for any sort of property or method, and then camel for variables with an underscore if they are meant to be protected/private. Do I need to do that? No, but I do. Ultimately, I just prefer consistent naming. Okay. Shapecast. I don't know if this is something that we want to new constantly, but we're gonna. Thought I kept the shape around. Have a shape baked into the area? No, I don't. Okay. Well, this makes it less reusable. Boo. But we just want to test this. Okay. Ugh. How we do. So the thing that makes the circles or the rectangles is that they add a child shape. can... Okay, Hungarian notation sounds really familiar. Oh, yeah, yeah. That used to be part of it. I dropped that as soon as I was able to use an IDE regularly with good IntelliSense and similar like error checking. I dropped a lot of the Hungarian notation patterns of including like this is a bool in its name because I work so much to use strong typing wherever possible. So it's that and the prevalence of objects, and I don't want to do everything as like, oh, variable name. Ugh. What is the one? Maybe it's Vim, but I remember one that is... naming variables. I mean, at least we're not talking about how you do tabs. But Schmuggums, I have encountered other programmers that are very purist as far as using only text editors, and it is madness. My model was made by Animation Studios. The artist was Dende, and the rigger was Inkjet. You can find I should have a debut video. I think that's where it'll be visible, where you can see some of that information as well. But yeah, Animation Studios. They have done well by me. Okay, so what we're looking at here... Oh, completing a thought. But Schmuggums and... somebody else mentioned it. Oh, yeah. Schmuggums, the whole text editor thing. I remember somebody showing me and trying to say, oh, it's so easy, you should just use this directly and do all the compiling at command prompt. And they went into the Photoshop rapid fire hotkey description necessary to do a copy paste. But why? Like, I used DOS too, but I don't have fond memories of like how I had to use it. Just of the games that I played or the basics I did. I don't disagree with that. HTML and JavaScript are... Now, I don't like them because of how kind of You can't see my hand gestures, but they're very, let's say, wiggly as far as what they do. There's a lot of, the browser felt like it going on in HTML and JavaScript. But yeah, I can see text editor for that. Primarily because you don't need a lot of the IDE bells and whistles. Hey, Drew. Oh, I've talked to web developers who, in the way of somebody speaking of a nightmare, talk about looking at those like we'll build a web page for you, or having, or just as much nowadays, having asking ChatGPT, hey, make me a web page that, opening up the code and looking at what it's actually up to. But no, I mean, to what you were mentioning, it's the right tool for the job, you know? Okay, so I need a shape for a shapecast. Shocking, I know. What we could do is have a update collision moment. Where's our collider? I don't know what it was about Java. It might have been that I had a professor that was really stuck up about it. The whole department did almost all of its work in C++. All of the professors worked in C++, except the new guy, who really wanted Java to be the wave of the future. Bruh, we're making a game. You have one of those handles that makes speaking with you funny. Here. Those joining late, one of the things I did last night and this morning, the outline that you're seeing now was previously baked into the sprites. Now it is part of a shader for them. So I can remove it if I want to. And I don't have to remake every frame of every sprite to do it. Oh yeah, Parakeet. We've got drop shadows now, which is useful because of the bouncy yarn balls. So you can see the shadow also grows and shrinks based on the height. Right now, if we look at it in Godot, for those unfamiliar with the channel in the game dev streams, this is at least 50% of it. Newt gets distracted. Exactly that, Schmuggums. Vampire Survivor style game with more constrained HP, so your Zelda style, Binding of Isaac style HP. Very Binding of Isaac style HP, actually. And weaponry like Noida. So if you look, the hitbox is about the size of the drop shadow. The wind-up mouse is a centered thing. Most projectiles will be centered instead of standing on, like an enemy or the player is standing on their shadow. whereas the yarn ball and the mouse are actually centered on their shadow. So their hitbox is right under the center of the sprite versus under its feet. But if we restart it, I really had a lot of fun making the little empty circuit slots, but they're way too busy. I'll use it for something else. Let's do it. Let's bring the game to a crawl real quick. Well, to some extent, Delusive, assuming you're not going to be insufferable about it when it comes to teaching, and I have encountered people that are insufferable about it, but as a programmer, that's kind of part of the basic skill set, is being able to take what you've already learned as far as coding in one language, and applying it to some other one. This game project that I've been working on is the first time that I've done any substantial work in C#. It is the first time that I've used Godot, and it's the first game that I've set out to develop. We are just diving headfirst into the deep end here. Okay, not the deep end. The deep end would be Unreal Engine, but no. Well, that is true. That is true, Delusive. Also, shader. Also, this is Godot shader language, which gets translated, but it's effectively the same thing. GD shader, but you write it in GLSL. Supposedly. I don't know at what point the cyan and magenta became the scheme that I went with. I do remember old DOS and can't remember what the computers were called in the old computer labs, the ones that you'd boot on a floppy and get on the bike and pedal to get it running. But those very, very chunky color sets that they would operate in. A lot of this is hard-coded right now, but what the outline one does is it looks at the 8 surrounding ones, and if it finds one that is not transparent, if it is fully transparent and it is touching one that is not, it puts the shadow color there. In the example up here in the test bed, let's get that out of the way so that we can... this is... The test bed is just where I throw nodes and whatnot. Hello, nope. To see how the code might work. It's hard to see, but this region right here is kind of off-white. There is a very low transparency or low visibility white that is in the open space there, because that means it is not alpha 0, which means it's not eligible for an outline. Yeah. Let's turn off that debug real quick. But yeah, the shader controls the outline. That is the example of a 1 pixel. Hey, JCR. Doing well. Doing well. This is technically 3 pixels, but it is 1-to-1 outline to screen pixel. For those that haven't seen it, this is Vampire Survivor style, but what you do is you essentially start with a basic weapon. So we watch yarn ball arcs up and bounces. Right now, because it's test code, whenever it touches the ground, it fires out one of these homing mice. That's not what it's going to do long term, but what it's going to do long term is a little more complicated to make it work right. So we'll get there. But so in it, it's this part right here, the fact that it's the yarn ball is going to take, we're going to take that and we will say, in addition to bouncing and emitting the mice, it's going to fire 3 at a time over the course of 1 second. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it will, each one of those immediately after being emitted will split into 3 more. So now we've got 9 of them going. And let's see here. As a testing icon, it looks like the mouse. It's not the mouse. Or at least I'm just using one of the icons I have. Then after 3 seconds, it will... it'll start to spiral out. Well, it'll spiral in. Spiral out will make it enter orbit. And by default, it will move in an S-curve. Schmuggums, that is the goal. Get it on Steam to begin with. Godot can compile for other platforms and to be friendly for it, but getting it on a major mobile platform is way harder than like getting it on something like Steam. But so now we do 3 in quick succession. Each of those splits into 3. They move in an S-curve coming out. Then, after 3 seconds, we're going to start to spiral in. But all of this stuff is still true. It's still bouncing. It's still moving in an S-curve. Would these be the actual power-ups you will get? No, these are too simplistic. Like, moving an S-curve is not bad, because it, while it does slow down the projectile's, like, speed off of the screen, it does create a wider hitbox coverage, which is important in this kind of game. But the spiral motions, absolutely, you would not use those by default. They are really disruptive as far as coverage. This is spiral in. Because the yarn ball is moving in a straight line, when it does a spiral in, what that generally is amounts to is a... It kind of does little loop-de-loops moving in. The further the straight line goes compared to how quickly the rotation of the spiral is, the more it gets kind of... It's like taking a spring and stretching it out, you know? The little loop parts start to get really tight. Okie doke. So what I've been puzzling over here is I want to start looking at kind of straight line beam weaponry. The simplest form of that is just something that will strike targets in a straight line as it goes. That's currently what is done, and that's why I'm looking into, can I get the shape cast baked in and just not use it? Yeah, it's... Switch cats here. I I have been surprised at what we've been able to play with when it comes to shaders. In our quest for optimization, there was a period where we were doing all of our collision checking in compute shaders. A compute shader. Massive brute force operation. It did not allow us to have different shapes. Well, we could have, but we weren't gonna. The math would get complicated fast. So we could have, but we didn't. But it's just neat the stuff you can do. And when you use them visually, I mean, like what I'm doing is every pixel gets its shader on it. I wonder if that's how the Noida guys did their whole every pixel is simulated. I wonder how you'd accomplish that. Anyway. Okay, so what we would want if we're going to do the shape cast is that we need to have a last position recorded. Let's just do that. I'm trying to do kind of like a brute force test of it here. Because what I'd like to be able to do is just have the an extra preliminary collision check kind of thing. So let's assume that. Yep. It's complexity of simulation is something that it's easy to get tripped up on. It's easy to have a simulation that in seeking to be realistic, you end up being cartoonishly unrealistic. But additionally, it's also easy to get bogged down in being too realistic for what you're doing anyway. Like you're trying to simulate stuff that you don't really care about. Okay. Okay. Is equal to new. Don't actually need to JSON ignore them because I am not using them as I have not set them up as a property, so it will ignore it properly. I need to do that, but I'm going to explicitly set it. Anywho, so we have raycast. Whenever we update position, could put this in the full collider, but for the time being, since the only colliders we're using are this, okay, yeah. Where we were, every time we update last position. And when we get an update, it's not quite right. Still not quite right. No, this is okay. So we're going to add a function here. Do it as a virtual. Intention is to override it. Okay. So in this we have stored off what the last position was here. That's going to be useful here. So we have updated the position to wherever the entity is. This can be overridden in subsequent children, but then we apply any offset. This is to make it so that the if the collision area needs to be a little to the left or right or up or down to fit the visuals on the entity, that's how we accomplish it. Or that's where we do it. If this works, then I'm going to have an intervening entity collider shape, you know? And that shape would have a shape 2D object that we would be using, that we would remember, so I can just pass that in. Wait a minute. Yeah, okay. Okay, so protected, override, check collisions. All right, so here's where we're going to do our shape cast. Not array cast. I think I put the wrong thing in there. Okay. For those just joining us, we are working on some of the collision detection. I am testing getting kind of straight line or beam weaponry into it, and to do part of doing that is trying a different collision method. I'm going to see if, for one, I can make it universal. We shall see, though. Shapecast.shape. Shape 2D. Yes. Okay. So then in check collisions, we are going to do does this have to be like a we do a lot of just kind of learn on the fly here. I do have some planning, and I am starting to actually have like a task board and whatnot that I'm trying to keep up with so I don't forget things. But a lot of it is, it seemed like a good idea at the time, let's try it. Let's just wing it here. Well, thank you, Schmuggums. Thank you. I appreciate it. What does it want to... Huh. This is an example of the IntelliSense doing it wrong. And I feel pretty confident that some of the IDE IntelliSense stuff has started to be AI influenced. You wouldn't do that. That saying is equal to new vector 3. This expects a vector 2. Now, will that still work? Let's find out. Yeah, no. Immediate compiler error. I've seen it suggest, like, passing method names into number fields, all kinds of stuff. Or it's nonsense. We are applying our offset. We are moving the area accordingly. This has node level stuff. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like shapecast is something that is like steadily in existence. It's going to be very similar to the circles. The difference is we're creating like an extended region for the collisions to happen. This is okay. Position, we do the base of it. So we already have last position as a result of this. Is very different though. Let's put that back in there just so I can see it. All right, going to continue this thought in just a moment. We're going to go on a quick break. While I'm away, if you haven't already and you like what you've seen so far, remember to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It does help the channel grow. But with that said, I will be right back. we're back. Okay. All right, so this is less tricky. So its position is always 0. Shapecast position is always 0. And its target position is where the area is. Oh. It's how much we moved is the relevant thing. So that should be area position minus last position. Good work. This works differently than I thought it would. I mean, par for the course. The wrong thing, don't do that. Out of there. Okay, so we have created the shape cast there, which should draw a line from last position to current position as the collision surface, and that line is the size of the shape. We have a shape cast there. So we could move this out of here. Move that here. Whenever we update the position, we apply the offset, we move the shape cast. Yes. Can move that whole thing in here. That's still viable. Okay, so we have it here. We go into circle. If we have circle shape, that's all we actually care about for this test. All right. Should have compiled it before I check over here, but it's going to do the compile anyway. Let's add our debug shapes. I don't think this will actually work, but I want to still have those. Oh. Because this isn't the one where it matters. It is in capsule. So this is shapecast.shape. This is not going to be quite right. Checking to see if there's a way for us to rotate the shape. So I don't want to rotate the actual shape cast. Shape 2D. We're missing a piece. You get to experience the whole. You get to see the whole programming experience here, which includes, 1,000-yard stare directly into the screen, muttering about what should or should not work, and potentially, head keyboard intersection. We already did that. Didn't we? We didn't. Yeah. I prefer to be able to debug in Visual Studio, bruh. Well, hello there, Gobber. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. That is correct. You aren't coding unless you're spending most of your time looking for an error. .add child, shapecast. Okay, capsule has a different child now. And we don't see... Oh, okay, well, we won't see any of that. We have to do that over here. So, I guess to the point as far as what I like debugging in better, where possible, Visual Studio. I don't like VS Code at all. A lot of that is just I'm experienced with Visual Studio, like its idiosyncrasies, and so VS Code is similar but different in, I would say, nonsensical ways. So it's grating if you're used to Visual Studio. Okay, it's kind of there. It's kind of there. We need to figure out the rotation. So in capsule, that is absolutely true there, Delusive. If there isn't an error, if everything is fine, especially if you're not sure about it, it gets troubling. I don't know if this is actually working or not. Initialize it. Seemed quite right as well. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it so that we're casting a line off of the entity instead. Yeah, the rotation is skewing this. fat fingering a hotkey here now and again. The fact that we are seeing the lines, it's getting there. It's getting there. Yeah, the rotation for the capsule is throwing it off. Oof, and that is bad performance. Okay. What this tells us is that this needs to be a separate thing. An entirely separate thing. It doesn't go there, it goes up here. I think it still has to be an area. The reason we're doing the shape cast is to try to simulate things that cause damage along the entire line. Give me every collision along this line. So they're going to be more expensive. Put some duplication logic in there as well, but actually no, these are generated on the fly. Last position would potentially need to be copied though. As soon as it came into being though, its last position would get updated. We'll leave that for now. Okay, so before we update position, which means before the base call and update position, we store off our last position because we need it. Be an area, but I think it does. Because we need, after we apply offset, So it's at the end of entity update position. Not really how we want to do it. Okay, so what we're adding here is for any of the child objects, anything you need to do before we actually update the position, do it here. Once we are finished fully updating the position, do this. So then in our shape cast, we would be I say I prefer debugging in Visual Studio. That's largely because of experience. I will say they've been making decisions lately that have me concerned as far as, you know, where we're going. Some of the worst bugs are the ones that they're inconsistent or effectively invisible, you know? When you go to recreate it, for whatever reason, the circumstances don't line up. And suddenly we have problems. So now we're going to take this out of here. Welcome back, Dodds. Entity. I mean, sardines are often a kind of an oily, fatty fish, so. This is an initialize collision that we need to put in there. Yeah, Delusive, I can't remember what the comic was, but back in the day, where webcomics were like the thing, there was one about a group of game QAers, and the things that they would show them doing were the most mundane things, and them trying to find ways to do it efficiently. It wasn't Penny Arcade, but it was one of the ones that was like in that in that general like orbit. Best story I heard is somebody that was, real gamer. They loved video games and they just wanted to get into the industry. They finally managed to get a testing job on an Xbox game, and their job for the testing period, which was a protracted period of time, was to come in and test. I think it might have been something like that, Parakeet. They would come in and they would test the CD tray, the disc tray on the console. Open it, put the disc in, close it, make sure it starts up. Shut it down, open it, take out the disc. Repeat for the entire workday, non-stop. There is equal to... Yep, Dots. The idea was that their job was to, wear down the disk tray, both the disk, the reader, and the tray. How long does it take to break down? Is there anything wrong with the whole process? With the kind of the thrust of the story being that game testing is, like you said, not like was said up there. A playtester doesn't play a game; they find the bugs. I expect it was about the console. They were probably testing for Microsoft, assuming the story is like their story. My favorite joke testing was two things. One, putting the controller in the room with a bunny and just having it, wail away at the controller, but just as much attaching an oscillating fan to the analog sticks indirectly, so that it would just spin them as it goes back and forth in every direction. I've worked closely with QA folks before, and boy, is that an underappreciated field. Just as development is spending a lot of time like fixing your own mistakes and the old joke of plans don't no plan survives contact with the enemy. You're spending a great deal of time adjusting the plan, tweaking things, running initial tests. QA's job is figuring out everything that could possibly go wrong and executing on that. And because, sadly, it is considered a much less important and much less skilled role, it is considered in the industry often, they aren't given the kind of the sway and the opportunity to do their job. And it ends up being like that is one of the prime areas that people cut corners, and that's how we get busted games on launch, is not giving the sufficient time. My favorite quote from a company president and their VP not really a quote, but an assertion, was that they had to be convinced to get a QA division, and they fought it kicking and screaming because their assertion was developers should be able to fully test their own software. Like, we don't need QAers because we have developers. They should do the QA too. That is a whole other job. There's often like 2 QAers worth of work out of each developer. And that's assuming you have things like regression and unit tests. Okay, we've added that. Now we need to in the area, we've already attached the entity. So in a shape one, we need to set the shape. So we'll pull all of the logic from circle here. Don't need collision shape there. Radius is going to be a part of circle, or at least of the shape cast here. If you're ever curious about what I am saying or why or any concepts of the game, do feel free to ask. As I've mentioned, this is a mutual learning experience. This is not meant to be a you understand everything and contribute to the process. It can be you want to learn the same things I'm learning, and you don't get it, so ask questions. You won't know if it's a rude or obnoxious question, and well, you know if it's a rude or obnoxious question. If you're uncertain, you can ask. Out to the shape cast. Okay, shapecast is not a child of area, is part of the trick here. Hey there, Levi. What determines the lighting level within a game? That does depend on how you're rendering within the game. You could have things like engine-specific light source objects. You could, and that is going to range from anything from just a template, your classic Half-Life era flashlight, where you just have a brighter template that you put over the field of view, all the way down to nastier simulations from light sources like just a little lens flary bloom kind of thing, on down to your whole ray tracing nonsense. And as far as changeable lighting, it depends on what you're messing with. We may visit further systems for sprites and whatnot. When I was messing with the Noida mod, Parakeet, not only does every sprite have a normal map, it also has a liquid map to deal with how like the fluids would stick to them and how it would where it would put it, kind of stuff. That's if you didn't include that and something dove into the water or slime or something like that, you wouldn't have that visual aspect. You wouldn't see it. Lighting and similar, there's a mechanical and like a tonal aspect to how you use lighting. And it's not just like bright, like is it well lit or poorly lit? Poorly lit is one way that people try to make things scary, and it ends up just making it hard to see. There are plenty of games that have that whole, make one of these symbols barely visible, or make both symbols just barely visible to tune the light, and inevitably I end up making the dark one a little brighter. And that's because it's just hard for me to see otherwise. That and dark does not mean scary. It just means dark. How you utilize the combination of content in that light is the important thing. Okay, we're going to leave the area in for now. The area will have no shape because of that. The Dying Light games do that, is that light is safe. Well, they have the classic one, and that's that the dark is dangerous because the things come out at night. But you can do it however you want. It's safe up in the trees or something like that. A lot of the story is how that impacts people, how it impacts the game. Dancing out there for a moment. Okay, so it's not that the area gets it, it's that Node gets this. Which is going to potentially change some of the logic here. But that's okay. Yep, with night you can have it where it's like, okay, I'm using the lack of light to sneak around, making it so that nighttime is optimal. I can avoid being detected like that. Alternately, it can be they can see in the dark and you can't, or they can perceive you and you have a harder time. They can hear you, they can smell you, they have night vision. They have a really good camera and comms array. Suddenly, the dark becomes a danger to you, because if they're in the dark and you can't spot them, but they still might be able to spot you and could be closing in, kind of thing. that kind of thing also makes for good asymmetric gameplay. Create the circle. I'm told that there is a particular subset of, I don't know if it's a subset or just an era of the Splinter Cell games that was big on that. Attach the shape here. We're ignoring the area. So when we do set entity, we're doing a lot of stuff with oh, I remember. So back in the era of EverQuest, there was and to some extent they did this in EverQuest 2 as well. Different species had different vision options. It had the classic problem that playing a human was a big old, PETA because of the, you can't see in the dark at all. Hope you brought a lantern. But setting that aside, they had a lot of different vision methods. Some of them they got lazy on and it was just a color mask. But there were some where they were trying to mimic the idea of you can see heat, you have thermal perception, that kind of stuff. It was ultimately just a color mask. But the idea that you can track by heat or, some sort of electromagnetic perception, any number of things like that, audio cues, and present that as a way of movement around, that kind of stuff. This one recently, the Midnight Walk had a couple of things, a handful of things throughout the game where mechanically there was a button for close your eyes. And what would happen when you did that is that it would increase the volume of some sounds and deaden some others. And you would be listening for audio cues that you could only hear during that. Oh, well, thank you there, Levi. 20 months now, going on 2 years. Oh, thank you for staying a member for so long. Let's see, where are we at here? Let's see if I can. Eyes aren't working that good, but your chat icon is accumulating cats swiftly. Well, thank you, Parakeet. Parakeet has redeemed the Twitch on-screen celebration thing, which is imperceptible to me, but to my understanding, it makes stuff happen on the Twitch side. Yeah, I can't tell what it's doing. But I'm paying attention this time for really. We'll have to see if I can find something in my my monitoring software that can detect that. It's invisible in all of my programs except for the Twitch chat feed. Ah. Eyes are starting to get all wonky. Thinky think, thinky think. All right, so right now we have it set up as if it's an area. And everything's about moving the area around. Let's clean up some of this so I can get back to a clean slate. So it's not an area. It's just a collider. This will make it pitch a fit here. I should move these things up. These should go up to the collider level. Because every collider needs a moment where it's like, okay, do additional setup that you need. Start the position update, finish it, actually do it, kind of stuff. Yeah. All right, so let's move those up from area and into just collider. What that would mean is that all colliders should be paying attention to this. If we look in... Yeah, we have our entity position updated. We have our remove entity. Why do I not have those in collider? These are the questions. Maybe I'll just get that where eventually your eyes get tired and you have trouble, like, getting them to focus properly. I mean, I know people do, but any of you have that? Why is this at the collider level? Hey there, Bob. This is an area, but where are we using this? It's all in collider area. This should be in collider area. Is it? Good reminder there to drink more, Laura. Got my I got my prescription updated as far as the eyes, but dehydration is something that's really easy to lose track of, you know? That one is Molly, Bob. She is the youngest of them. Good opportunity for a cat check here. Molly has taken Ember's traditional spot. Ember is at the side of the desk. We almost have a bit of toe bean visible there. It's probably technically visible. We have Sherbet on the bed. All right, let's do, and then Sky up in the tree, Sammy on the shelf. Let's do a bit of zoom in here. Oh, a bit of stretch from Ember there. Yeah, we got some toe beans. She's a little cutie. And... oh, that's both of them. That's Mason and Sherbet. I was trying to see, it was like, the fur doesn't look quite right. Just the two of them piled on each other. All right, so the messy blanket is preferable for them. Oh, wow. Oh, wow, camera 7 misbehaving. Had some horror movie frame jump motion going on there. The two of them right next to each other really demonstrate the difference in the way that they sleep. Mason is like, he doesn't like to contort around and roll around unless he's getting belly rubs. He wants to sit in either a loaf or a bagel, like very, very feet on the ground kind of cat. Sherbet ties himself into a pretzel to lay down. Oh yeah, camera 7 is going like frames per minute there. I am looking at updating the cameras, but... and there's Molly. She has... her coat is a little more brown than Ember's, but she has a very similar fur pattern. Or at least the stripes are very similar from the side. But switch over to our very highly photogenic princess here. Let's move this over here. Do a quick build. Just gonna nix most of this so that we can try the build. Okay, it doesn't overtly break. Okay. Collision is still happening. Damage is still happening properly. Okay. So we need to determine everything that should go here. Do that check. We have a default update position here, but like all of this stuff is relevant universally. All of them need to do this. And then in collider area, don't need to put you there. Most of set entity will move up to collider. For those that are wondering what's going on, I am refactoring this all over the place. Initialize collision logic. Hello, Florian. Why is that not a valid identifier? Weird. So we have position updated. We're going to go in here. No. We need to make sure that we have sufficient sub-values here that or subfunctions that we have enough things to override properly. Nothing to reposition in a default collider. On remove entity, though, needs a comparable thing here. So this is we are attaching an entity directly. We do our set entity. Area override. Our goal is ultimately to get to beam weaponry, but not looking fantastic for that. We're gonna keep going though. So we're in the process of shuffling the an interesting thing with world building, Florian, is in some ways you get to, like in high fantasy scenarios, you get to just kind of declaratively make things. But the trick with it is figuring out where you're going to spend your suspension of disbelief and how. Like, is this going to be a thing like the how and the why of creatures like that? What they do. Like D&D has a lot of because it would be cool creatures, you know? Where the creature is completely impractical in any physical environment. Its methods of locomotion, its methods of predation, all of that just don't make sense. Outside of the, it would be a cool monster in a dungeon. Okay, so these are true of everything. We need to detach the entity events. Hey there, applesauce. Yeah. Half-elf has always been, as far as Dungeons and Dragons, a goofy concept. Not that it, like, oh, that can't possibly exist, but more, why only half-elf? Like, they eventually also added half-orc, which creates the implication that, so far, humans are genetically compatible with 2 specific instances, and those 2 are genetically compatible with humans. There is the implication then that you could have a half-elf, half-orc. I'm not displeased that they've been trying to move away from that, just because there's a lot of eugenics baggage in Dungeons and Dragons species. entity, we do this. We attach an entity, we apply those, and then we are currently saying update the position. The problem being is if we update the position now, then anything that would have to happen when we're setting the entity needs to happen elsewhere here. Let's move that up here. So immediately after we initialize, we update the position, which gives us the opportunity during set entity to attach that. Another one of those solid examples. I am in the onEntity position updated function. I'm saying base dot at the top of the function. The most probable thing is that I am calling the same function on the base class. Let the parent object do its thing here. What it was suggesting to me is that at the top of entity position updated, another event that is being overridden here, that I should be calling base.onRemoveEntity because I just put that text in another method, and so well clearly that's what you want. So because we've done that, we can move in position updated. Move you up there. We are making a lot of changes here. The fragility. Oh, that's super broken. Okay, when we call initialize collision, collision shape is present, but that means area is not present. So we need to make sure area is getting set up properly. But set entity should be the thing that's happening there. I'll initialize collision. Over here in initialize collision, Oh, okay, okay. When we set the entity, the first thing we do here is we call initialize collision. Because we have an entity object, let's go. But this one is also calling that. So we're going to end up doing that twice. There is our initialize collision. Oh, it wasn't doing anything before. Well, thanks for swinging through, Florian. Have a good night. Okay, it wasn't doing anything previously. What initialize collision was doing brains. Let's do circle. Initialize collision is going to attach a shape to the area in the case of the area ones. So it is reliant on the area being tagged first. But that's not going to happen until set entity is done in the base, which should have happened. So initialize collision will happen in the base of set entity. But this is where the area is all completely set up. Okay. Move that there. That's already happening. This ultimately needs to happen at the end, I believe. So we're going to move that out. And after setting the entity, this is all stuff that should be in the collision. Yeah. Okay, so we set the entity, we initialize the collision, we do an initial position update, and we apply the offset. Okay. This pairing is not 100% what I want, but we'll get there. Okay, we're already doing that in the parent. This is all stuff that needs to happen in the initialize collision. Just in case. Special with set entity. Spider area, we initialize collision. This will have problems if we set that, so okay. But this needs to be a new area, and if it has no entity, then a lot of this stuff becomes irrelevant. But I think that's okay. Oh. We will cross the bridge of colliders without entities another time. That really should never happen. Or to put it another way, it should be an error case. There should be an error case if that happens. We update the position, we apply the offset. Let's try to run again. Oh, wow. That's... Huh. Default the remove entity. I'm gonna end up breaking this up into a lot of pieces so that yeah. whatever you have to do to remove the collision is going to happen here. Yep, delusive. That moment when you're like, okay, this is going to get simultaneously more complicated and less complicated. Okay, so we remove the entity, we remove the collision, we call out that we're ready to remove. Since this is just a generic collider, it doesn't do anything to remove the collision. So then over here, it's not because we call on remove entity in the area that it cares about that. This is remove collision. She's a little sweetheart. She tends to... So Molly is in her spot right now, which is normally directly across from my keyboard. That used to be Tom's spot. Tom was one of my first two cats, big old Maine Coon. Ember would snuggle up with Tom a lot. To give you a proportion there, Ember is itty bitty. She is my smallest cat. Tom is the second biggest cat I've ever had, and Maine Coons are enormous. He weighed, like, was getting slim towards the end of his life, but let's say about 20 pounds. Ember is a few at the most. When Tom would lay on that heating pad that she was laying on, he would obscure it completely. But normally that's not Ember's spot. That's not normally where she sleeps, but Molly took her spot. Not uncommonly, Ember will cling to my shoulder for attention, intensive attention. Don't you dare ignore me kind of attention. Update the position. The area position is set there. When we apply the offset, we adjust the area accordingly. Okay. There's nothing extra in position update that we're doing. Okay. Everything's still going very wrong, but we're getting there. Yep, it is the... Again, ideally there would be some, like, very cleanly written document that goes through my intention and what the hierarchy of classes would be, and we'd be totally maintaining that, and very carefully going over and making sure that any update gets rippled out accordingly. But that has never happened in my career as a programmer. It happens on paper, but it doesn't actually happen in practice. And that's not what we're doing at all here. It's entirely just we move the area around. I always liked the just the dumbfoundedness when people will say like, "Oh, well, isn't that documented in the wiki or something like that?" It's like, yeah, it was like 5 years ago. Are we going to be given time to update the wiki? No? Oh, okay. Never mind then. So we are creating the area. It's got to be on the position update that things are going wrong. Let's do a little test run here. As an area object. The area should have a shape 2D. Okay. Added the shape to the area. They're now referenced, so we should be good. We don't need special collision. It's going to be remove collision whenever we do that. Update position will update the area. Entity off, remove the collisions, invoke the remove. Initializing the collision twice. Let's get that out of there. That'll cause problems. That would have created extra things. Okay, I think that was the problem. I was duplicating some of the objects. So, a bit ago, Laura, who is a friend off of stream as well as somebody that's on stream frequently, has started making a game as well in Godot and C#. Same stuff. And I work with him on it because it's neat. But he's run into that kind of thing in the same way I have, looking for tutorials on stuff. And it is infuriating to find tutorials that are just, let's use this wildly complicated thing that's actually not relevant to the question and only works in this very, very specific instance. Godot is mostly GD script, but I do pretty much everything that it's doing in C#. There's a handful of things that you can't really do in C# for Godot to really have clean access to them. And some of it is like I have a smoke and mirrors service model. Yeah, I get what you're saying there. Godot's documentation is pretty good at showing some of the C# stuff. But not all of their documentation has it. Make sure everything is working here. Yep. Okay, let's do a save state here. Okay. This gives us some extra layers to work with. Well, welcome back, Yuki. Name doesn't ring a bell, but I'm not great with remembering names that I'm not constantly reminded of. But things are going well. We're doing a lot of refactoring right now. We wrapped up a shader for outlining so that I don't have to put the outlining in the sprites. Eventually I'll revisit that and do things like I will make shaders specific to a variety of things so that I can do stuff like, this is the outline shader with a blue palette swap kind of stuff, so that when I am loading entities in, I can choose, hey, use this shader material. You can do, I'm getting off on a tangent, but you can do instance-based shader parameters for canvas shaders in Godot 4.4, but that is limited to 4096 instances of that shader with unique variables. And since it is the, I wonder if I can get away with this now. veering off for a moment. Yeah. Sometimes you can find tutorials and similar in documents where you can tell they had a very, very specific way that they made it work, and they are demonstrating it as if that is the answer to the question in general. But that doesn't mean that the thought process that gets there and the neighborhood that they're in is wrong. And that's another one of those learning programming things, is being able to piece apart the logic, kind of the logical flow that they came up with, and figure out, is this something that will work for me, let alone work at all, as they've described it. Because sometimes they'll describe something that is wrong, it just looks like it works. Or in the case of things like tile map, the newest version of your engine will fundamentally change or deprecate something, and all of the guides are about the old thing that is now deprecated. Can I... Okay, so what I'm doing is I want to do... We're going to go into our shader editor, and we are going to do an instance variable. Instance uniform float. Let's call it testing. Are we going to do anything with it? No. Not actually functionally do anything with it. But we are going to go in here and we'll put it at the bottom of the function so I can find it. Instance shader parameter. Testing, 2.0. Okay. I want to see if this works, because one of the things I did once we were more towards a viable way of dealing with the shader is that I've made one instance of the shader material and I'm reusing it. When you're setting an instance parameter, it is the entity that uses the shader material that sets a particular instance parameter, as opposed to making a pile of shader materials. Is this different? Let's find out. All right, flood the place. Still working. Excellent. Okay. Let's make sure I'm not getting like a subtle air flood here. And then I'll describe what I'm doing. Or why I'm pleased. Yeah, Yuki, for testing purposes, every time a yarn ball bounces, it emits a mouse that homes in on an enemy target. The blobs are appearing in more than one a second. The yarn balls, which again, they emit a mouse every time they bounce, and they bounce pretty frequently, are being emitted 27 per second. So there'd be a lot of things happening. There's currently at least 1,300 things on the screen right now, which means there's about 2,600 or more, probably more, visual things being rendered. Every object has a shadow, so it's an extra thing. Right now, the blobs can take one hit from any of these. So yeah, it's instant death, but this is not an actual game state. This is a testing state, but on top of that, if the player achieves this, and it's not going to be easy to achieve this, but if the player does, it's okay that they wipe the screen of enemies. Because this, what I call this is a calamity case. This is the far end of performance for our application. Like, this shouldn't happen. It strains the system. As long as it doesn't crash and it runs at all when this is happening, that's a win. So what if we make 81 entities per second as far as yarn balls are concerned, which will flood the screen with even more mice. Fun fact, I've blue screened twice during streams so far. Happily, my streaming setup is such that it can survive that, but I will go silent when it happens. Nomable is raiding with a couple of folks. Hello again, Nomable. I think you came through before. We're doing some stress testing. Oh man. We're getting upwards of 2 frames per second with 4,000 things. Make it worse. We're doing a quick stress test. It's actually been a bit since we did this. We can still get up to 2 frames per second with over 5,000 things active. I actually feel pretty good about that. So if we tab it and get to the menu, with 5,774 things being rendered, including visual representation of their collision zones, we're still getting double-digit frames per second. It's pretty good. I have hopes that we will eventually achieve minutes per frame again, as in the olden days. And by olden days, I mean back in our Noida mod streams. I don't think that's odd, Delusive. The idea of translating pseudocode being easier than implementing a known formula, it's if you don't understand the formula, then you have to kind of reverse engineer what it is. If it's pseudocode, you're thinking about how to implement the intent of that pseudocode. All right, let's let it fall back. One of the things I've got implemented here is a caching system for the nodes. If you keep straining it, it will keep adding more and more things. Oh, wow, man. 7,000 things, and we're actually still running. Like, we're actually getting about a frame per second. It's going to take at least, like... It takes many frames, because it takes like 10 or 12 seconds. About 10 seconds for a projectile to end its lifespan. And that includes the yarn balls. That again, they were being emitted 81 at a time. Actually, how many did I have? Oh man, yeah, we had the whole 5 there, which means about 3 to the 5th. This is in-memory caching. So, in Godot terms, there are nodes for everything. There are elements on the tree for every one of these. Creating and deleting those swiftly is expensive. I'm sorry, adding them and removing them from the tree frame by frame is expensive. But if I add them in a big chunk and get them ready for use without making them visible, the cost is minimized. So there's like several thousand of them active when there's that many. So I queue them up and keep reusing them as necessary. But yeah, we let it go. And now with like 400 things on the screen, we're back over 60 frames a second. The cache kind of decays away once it goes for long enough. But if I freeze, the game will run. The engine will run really slow if I do this, but we'll show it for a moment. So if I look at collision space, all of these nodes here, and there's a lot of them, the ones that I can expand are ones that are in current use. The rest of them are cached on this as part of that entity. And we can see them over here too. Oh, wow. Okay, well, we've had a quiet error that did not prevent the program from running. Yikes. Let's just end that. Okay, we can't do that. That's sad. It doesn't mean we can't do what it intends to do, but what I was testing is to see if, well, because I kept the shader material cached off as its own thing, if I could set the sprites to have the variable in for it to still work. But it seems like as far as the engine as we're working with it, you can only have 4,096 instances of shaders with instance variables set. Instance uniforms set. All right, we stress test again. So let's see, we have 3, then 9, then 27, then 81, then 243. things being emitted at once. So every second we are emitting, like, let's say 240. And then every time they bounce, we emit a mouse. So there are huge surges of entities being created here. So we're going to tab over. Okay, we still have errors happening. Okay, we have to get that out of the shader. Interesting, I didn't know it worked that way. Just the instance variable being there is a problem. All right, light it up. So back in the days of the Noida mod, the Noida mod is a source of a lot of character lore and the lore of this game. Well, okay, it crashed. One of our goals back in the days of the Noida mod was to make the biggest, nastiest explosion possible. And the joke of it was reaching the point where it was either seconds per frame, or in the most notorious instances, minutes per frame. In order to calculate how much damage something did, both to the terrain and, like, numerically in damage numbers. I think we have a video somewhere that is... Shameless plug, watch my videos. Where the damage number was in the quintillions. It took a long time for that number to appear, though. Well, that is... Fellow that joined, that is apparently technically a sentence. I neither read nor speak whatever that is, but I will translate once or twice only. Just takes a while. Okay. Why crash? Why crash? Now there's the possibility that it's crashing because I have corrupted the shader handling, and perhaps we are approaching a blue screen. Let's find out. So we're running this in Visual Studio. Visual Studio lets me do debugging of the C# code. I do like the way that the iron ball bounce is represented. I feel like that turned out well. So supposedly, Delusive, the actual, like, texture entity, the thing that is being rendered is actually individual instances. I'm sorry. Like, that resource is replicated, so the texture exists and is stamped onto the screen multiple times. That said, there was a period where, again, using shaders and whatnot, I did single graphics pass for all of them. So it would do one big tiled pass of all of the entities using a single sprite sheet. 10,000 objects! We are definitely under 1 frame a second, though. It's taking like 1 or 2. I'm using an integer, so it rounds it up. It's set to round up. But, yeah, it hasn't crashed. I don't know why it crashed. Pause. Wow. Okay, escape. So when you do that, the whole game scene goes away. All of the resources are unloaded when you do that. There are some elements that don't need to be unloaded, and I want to double check that eventually. We'll totally do that later. Why am I doing this again? Because I want to make sure that there isn't some sort of like leak scenario going on. So you can see as it goes along, as we're operating with it, we get a steady climb. Okay. We're going to let it run down to like nothing now. But yeah, there was, we've done things like every sprite that is rendered in a, it's like a mesh instance or something like that. What it amounts to is, like a visual object that is a composite of many individual bits, and it optimizes it to go all at once. The difficulty with it is that it assumes that it's built for replicating all of the same thing. So getting it to render all kinds of different things in different orientations and whatnot is kind of a burden. Like if I want to account for the player sprite, which is 32 by 32, all of the sprites need to be 32 by 32. They don't need to fill it, but they would all need to be that big, which is kind of a hassle. Back. It's going to take a while before that would fall off. It's possible that in stopping the app or in some of these error cases, we are prodding the graphics card. This is definitely an error state, but I'm not too worried about it. So the pause unpause is busted here. Okay, it's releasing a little bit of the memory. The process is currently using about apparently 1.3, and it is falling away. Hey there, Xerox. Yeah. Okay, so let's see, where are we? Not there, that's not where we are. Escape out of that. Check a couple of things here real quick. Okay, so we're going to wrap up about here. Sorry for the timing there, Xerox. So what have we accomplished today? We got, we finished up our shader. We've poked it a couple of times. I had planned on getting, on starting with the idea of a beam weapon. But we didn't get there. Instead, we ended up heavily refactoring some of our collider logic in preparation for the Shapecast collider. I may poke on that before the next stream if it isn't tomorrow. But we'll see. We did a lot of refactoring today. We wrapped up with a lot of stress testing to verify that we weren't getting too much. Now, it's possible that there's still something wrong. The fact that Godot silently crashed is kind of a concern. So while I'm speaking, let me run that and determine if we have to do a what went wrong stream later. But yeah, things are moving along. Once we get to ideally the next thing will actually be the beam weaponry. That's going to come in a couple of flavors. First, we want a projectile that just passes through things as it goes. So it doesn't calculate the collision of where it lands, it calculates the collision across a greater distance. So it's not suited for things that move slow. What you want is a indicator that it is here and it is projecting across the screen kind of stuff. Hello, Sherbet. Have you forgiven me? Okay, not quite. There are... It's more than, because it's going to be accumulating them, but there's more than 10,000 things active right now. Sherbet has forgiven me for cleaning his chin earlier. He has a bit of cat acne, and has come back over for ear scratches. Now, that might be because the food dish is just about empty, and he is reminding me of that. I mean... Alright, let's... To the limit. Okay, so this is 243 things at once. And then each of those things will in turn emit another thing every time it bounces. So a lot of objects at once. What I have added here is to say every second each of those balls that bounces will create another thing. Another way to look at that is number go up. Number go up real quick. Here they go. Oh, we're also doing collision debugging during this, so that's even more strain on the system. You can see bigger, maybe you can see bigger transparent blue circles forming where the little blast particles are happening. Okay, we jump over here. We have no errors in the debugger. Oof. Took the program a moment to take focus. Okay, halt. So two things. When you pause the game, it doesn't actually pause the visuals. It is possible to do that. Not doing it at the moment. But you can see the big circles are the collision sphere for a explosion. Okay, so we take these off. There is so much active right now that even though we are not simulating any movement or collision, it's still at single-digit frames per second. Why are we doing this? One, because it got my attention, and two, because it is important to stress test now and again. I have spent a great deal of time in this project stressing over the ability to render and process a lot at once. And the reason being is if it can run, if the game can run during this, then when we're in normal operating parameters, when we're under 1,000 entities, then it will run really well. Like I've said on this before, is if you reach this point in regular gameplay, you win. Like, there would have to be some freak circumstance for you to lose in this scenario, because nothing can even get on the screen. So the idea that the game gets really slow is, in that scenario, can be viewed as kind of a congratulations moment. Is, you won, you broke the game. There's nothing the game can do to win now. Okay, and now we have dropped back to, under 100 things, so 600 frames per second. Is that as high as it can go? No. If I drop back to the same circumstances fresh, I can get more frames than that, and that's because that cache happened. The game still has a lot of extra resources that it's holding on to say, hey, you used up an awful lot of these. I'm not gonna free them up immediately. Maybe you're gonna use them again. But that's so what we spent most of our time on today was getting the colliders set up so that when we get the laser one in place, we will have something to work with. The logic of using these is going to be a little different. So one, this is how big. Ultimately, this is the width of the beam. But one of the things that this needs to have is that it is a collision shape that needs to adapt to the situation. So I need to be able to specify a length of this, and ideally that is something that would change. I don't want it to just be a pill shape that I stretch out and emit as a solid projectile. This should be something that is colliding along its entire length, every frame kind of stuff. Is it emits the hit constantly. So I want to trace that distance. We'll see how this plays out ultimately, though. But the work we did today is going to facilitate being able to mess with that. All right, with all that said, though, folks, I hope you had a good time with us tonight. If you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. It does help the channel grow. If you'd like to consider financially supporting the channel, you can do so through platform-specific means as well as Patreon, Coffee, and Throne. You can find links in the link tree in my bio and video descriptions. But with all of that, I hope the rest of your day is good, and I'll see you next time.